Hello, and welcome to The Resource, the podcast propelling employer brands to recruit smarter and retain better. I am your host, Priscilla Peters.
And I'm your other host, Scott Dismuke. And Priscilla, it's been a minute since we've done a regular podcast.
I know. I was actually at ATA when we recorded our Q3 data download episode. But now I'm back in the office, and so are you. And do we know what season it is? Because down here in the South where we are, it's like it's winter one day, then it might be fall, then we're just wearing shorts again. I think this week we're seeing 33 and 85 in the same week.
Yeah, same here. And we've both been doing some traveling. I was up in Omaha and Kansas City visiting some customers earlier this week, and it was weird. We got to Omaha on Monday, and it was like 27 degrees, and then when we left on Tuesday, it was 60 something. So we're not the only ones having to deal with it. They were loving it in Omaha, though. They were like, "Man, this feels great."
I love that.
So it's always it seems like summer gets longer and longer, and fall gets shorter and shorter. Like we have like 2 weeks of fall, and then all of a sudden it's winter, and
I know.
I mean, what are we like? And when we're recording this, we're 2 weeks away from
Thanksgiving,
and like, have you even started any Christmas shopping at all?
No, but I have. This is interesting. The kids these days, they create an actual PowerPoint. I got a Google slide deck from my 15-year-old. Here's my Christmas list. I'm like, okay, first of all, you are your mother's daughter. Okay, let's just call it what it is. But second of all, that's a little much, my love. So, but no, to answer your question, I have started nothing. I will say my house is decorated for Christmas, though, because I had one weekend, the off weekend of the Razorbacks, that I could decorate, and it was last weekend. So it looks like Christmas. There's just nothing under the tree.
Do you normally decorate for Christmas right after Halloween?
I do not, smarty pants. No, I do not. But this year I did. I did.
I really wasn't trying to be smart.
Listen, we're about to go into first five, and we could do this as a debate of, do you wait? Because there is a for sure opinion on this. Do you decorate for Christmas before Thanksgiving, or do you give Thanksgiving its due? I do it whenever's convenient for me. I do not give a crap if Thanksgiving gets its due. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, we normally would do it right after Thanksgiving, not because we want to give Thanksgiving its due. It's just because I think the wife and I love having the Christmas decorations up, but I hate putting the Christmas decorations up, and I hate taking them down even more. And I'll just tell them, and hopefully my wife won't listen to this episode, but there was one year, I kid you not, y'all, it was
Easter.
It was almost Valentine's Day, and we still have our Christmas tree up.
Oh,
I was like,
I have a friend that she's like, it doesn't come down till Easter. Like, I don't feel and I'm like, December 26th, I'm over it. Like, take that sucker down. Let's be done with it.
Yeah. Yeah. We would normally do it like that first weekend after Thanksgiving is when we would normally put ours up. And now it's particularly since the kiddos moved out, it's just like, whenever we get to it, we get to it. Or we'll get to a Saturday and, we're bored. We're like, well, let's just go ahead and put them up.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. The older you get, you kind of stray away from those types of traditions. Once it's up, I love it. I just hate putting them up, and I hate taking them down.
I hate it. I hate it so bad. Me too. And yeah, listen, we have quite the episode to get to. We're gonna talk about the driver survey here in just a second. But first, I think we have some business we need to take care of.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the survey. We've got some interesting stuff, and it's always good to hear from the drivers themselves. But first, let's hit our final mile first five, sponsored by driver.jobs, your destination for hiring the drivers you need for your final mile operations. Driver.jobs, matching the right drivers with the right opportunities for every last mile. So normally, and we haven't done this in a while, we have our final mile first five. And since we don't have a guest on today, since we're doing the survey, we have one question that our producer, Sydney, who's always great at these, has asked us, and I will pose it to you and we can debate. If you could only take 3 side dishes on a long haul road trip, Thanksgiving feast, what are you packing?
Okay, first, real quick, just like very fast. Are you a turkey or a ham guy?
I'm turkey.
Are you? I have to tell you this. I made my first turkey last night ever in my 50 years on the planet Earth. So we lead a life group at church. We had our little Friendsgiving thing last night. And they were like, oh, you're going to provide the meat and we'll do the sides. I'm like, yeah. And I didn't even think in my mind that means I have to make a turkey. But just for the record, I did, and it was good. And trust the internet when it comes to that, because it turned out great.
I will tell you the last 2 Thanksgivings, we have actually gotten a turkey from Whole Foods. So just a little plug for Whole Foods. Maybe they'll sponsor the podcast. So yeah, we did one from Whole Foods last year. Makes it so much easier. But I will tell you, it was one of the best turkeys I've had. It was fantastic. So go. And it's not terribly expensive either.
Okay. Well, Matt Beach, president of Tim Force, swears by Popeye's turkey.
I've heard that too. I've heard that too.
I mean, we're going to get all kinds of sponsors from this. Okay. The question is the 3 sides. I didn't see this until right before because I'm such a good preparer. And so, but there's just not a lot of thought that has to go in this for me because I know what they would be. Number 1, well, I might have a 4th, but I don't know if this counts as a side. So I might be cheating.
This is supposed to be a debate between you and I, not you're not supposed to be debating yourself.
I was going to tell you my 3 and you were going to tell me your 3. Oh, we have to agree on 3. Well, let me tell you.
No. Oh. Well, I mean, we can.
Okay. We don't know the rules. We're just making them up as we go, which is pretty much how we live this whole podcast life.
That's right.
Here's what my 3 would be, and you tell me. Dressing. We call it dressing in the South. Some people call it stuffing. You're wrong. It's dressing. Number 2 would be sweet potato casserole, but no marshmallows. I can't do the marshmallows. And then number 3, listen, I got a new 3rd side last night at my little Friendsgiving thing that we did. And it was this corn casserole business that was kind of like dressing, but not. And it was amazing. But I got to have a roll too. So those are mine. What are yours?
So we agree on dressing, 100%.
Yeah.
100% agree on that. I have to have mashed potatoes.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I make the mashed potatoes.
I forgot about this. You told me this last year, or maybe year before. Yeah,
Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I do the mashed potatoes, and then my mother-in-law makes a squash souffle that, I kid you not, it literally just tastes just like pumpkin pie. It is. I did not think
that's fantastic. What you were going to say when you said that.
No, it's fantastic. So those are my 3. I don't even have to. I don't even have to think about it. Now, my favorite, though, during Thanksgiving is I get a little bit of turkey, a little bit of gravy, get a little bit of mashed potato, get a little bit of dressing, all on the same fork. Yep.
I do the same thing, except I don't do the mashed potatoes. I do the sweet potatoes. So it's like the salty, the sweet. That's the perfect bite for me. Like, I like to mix it all up. I have one of my kids, like, eats everything separate. Like, she eats all of her French fries and then her chicken, or, it's weird. I'm like, no, you got to mix that up, girl. What are you doing? But anyway, either way, we're looking forward to Thanksgiving. So.
Absolutely. Now I'm hungry.
I know. Right?
Now I'm hungry.
Right. Yes. Well, I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving, and happy Thanksgiving to all our listeners as well. So I think it's time we got to dive into this fall driver survey data.
Let's hit it.
All right.
All right, so let's jump into this. There's a lot of really interesting information in this survey. We're going to go over a few of these questions. There's several more that we're not going to go over on this episode, but we'll have the links to download the full report in the show notes. So I certainly encourage you to do that. And we're gonna hit on several things that definitely, I think, shows some shifts in driver sentiment about what's going on and what they're looking for. This was very interesting, to say the least. And Priscilla, I'll be interested to get your feedback on some of this. But we'll start with the first question that we always start with, that we ask on every single one of our surveys. And that is, are you currently looking for a job? And I will tell you, the number is 56.3% of drivers said yes. To put that in perspective, in the spring of this year, it was 46.8%. In fall of last year, so a year ago, it was 40.7%. So we've seen a massive uptick in this. This is the largest percentage of yeses that we've received on this question since we started doing this survey. Priscilla, just kind of, what do you say, and what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. So I've been talking to a few of the carriers we work with about this, and it does trend with turnover increasing for some fleets. So we've been kind of hearing rumblings of that over the past few months. This data reflects that as well. But I have had two different carriers ask me this. They're like, oh, well, doesn't that mean, oh, wow, this many drivers are looking now? Does that mean that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing? And I said, whoa, wait. So if the number of job postings wasn't trending up as well, that might be true. I mean, I think that's kind of a little bit of an odd way to look at this, to be honest, but that is not the case. So what's ending up happening is more drivers are looking for new opportunities. There are more jobs. So remember, truck drivers, the number one most posted job in the United States. And the job postings are trending up as well, which means carriers are needing more drivers, needing more jobs. Also, and we're going to get into this here in just a second, but you are competing with what some would think of as some non-traditional jobs. And when I say that, I mean more local jobs. And like I said, we're getting ready to jump into that, but there's a lot of things going on here. I think what I would take from this if I was a carrier is two things. Number one, consider around 50-ish% of your fleet is probably looking. And so it's super important that you're recruiting your current drivers. I know we talk about that a lot. And then number two is making sure that your messaging is in place for those that are looking. And it would be an opportunity for you to get a quality driver that is looking for a new carrier. Make sure that all of your messaging is on point and that you are set up from a recruiting standpoint. Those would be kind of my takeaways here.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this for a couple episodes, even when we've done our data downloads. And I've had this feeling for a while that we're on the verge of a pretty significant driver churn if the economy ever comes back. And I think these numbers reflect that. I think the other thing I would say is, I think probably the more important points to this, even more so than this extremely high number, is the whys. Why are you not looking? And we've got some data behind that. So
yeah,
we
let's go
always
through
ask,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So we always ask those drivers that said yes, if you were looking for a job, why are you looking? So I'm going to kind of give you the top four responses here. Number one, and drivers could choose all that apply. So that's why your percentages aren't going to match up here. But 58% is improved home time. 52.4% is predictable pay. 43.2% is better benefits. And that's one that we have seen over the last probably 3 or 4 surveys that has gone to a kind of an also ran up to now the third largest thing that drivers are looking for. And then the fourth one, which I think kind of goes along with predictable pay, is consistent miles, which was at 40.9%. One of the things I think I learned from this overall survey, and for those of you that download the whole thing and look at it, would be interesting to see if you guys feel the same way, is home time is quickly becoming a currency. And it's the same type of currency as the real currency. It's drivers right now, I think, are looking for stability, which I think, to be fair, so are carriers at this point with this prolonged recession that we've been in. They're looking for stability. They're looking for predictability. We've said for years that two of the most important things to drivers are predictable pay and predictable home time. And that's, one is somewhat in your control. The other is really not. We're at the mercy of the freight market. But the predictable home time, I think this just goes without saying. And we've said this before, and our data has shown this, that when you tell a driver you're going to get them home, you had better get them home. And so that's one of my biggest takeaways in this whole thing, is how important work-life balance is becoming to today's drivers. And I had initially thought that a lot of that would have to do with the ages of drivers and maybe some of the younger, newer drivers coming into the market. If you look at the age breakdown on this survey, it's 40s to 50s. It's not a overwhelmingly young, group that answered this survey. It's pretty wide spectrum across the board. So if you're in operations, if you're in recruiting, you need to know that work-life balance is becoming just as important a currency as the actual currency and cent per mile itself.
Yeah. And I think what I think is important to point out, and I think you were the first one that kind of really made drove this home for me, is home time doesn't necessarily mean like a lot of it. It means like if you say you're going to get me home, or if I tell you, hey, I need to be home. Johnny's playing football Friday night. I don't want to miss another game. That you get me home. It doesn't necessarily mean I need to be home for 3 or 4 days unless they have requested that. But a lot of carriers think, oh, well, we give them great home time. Like we can't improve that at all. But when you commit to having them home for something that's really important to them, to your point, from a work-life balance standpoint, are you fulfilling that? It may be that he gets home to watch Johnny play football on Friday night and he leaves on Saturday night. And in him, he's fulfilled. That might be okay if you have those kind of conversations. So I think it's, I just don't want carriers to jump the gun and think, oh, I can't give any more than I'm already giving. Could you make sure the way you're committing to it is better for the driver? I mean, that's one way to look at it. The next question we're going to look at does tie to this whole conversation about home time. So we asked them, and again, we'll put the link in the show notes so you guys can download the full survey. We're just going to cover a few questions today. But we asked drivers, because we've been having a lot of carriers tell us, man, a lot of OTR regional dedicated type carriers that don't offer home daily. Okay. It's not like a local home daily driving job that they offer. We've had a lot of them say to us, hey, why am I losing all these drivers to local jobs? And so, because that traditionally was just something that an OTR guy or a regional type driver guy wouldn't really look into. Well, let me just be crystal clear. That has changed. So the question was, would you prefer a local driving job with slightly lower pay if it meant being home more often? Now, 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, this would have been a no. I'm not taking less pay. Today, 61% said yes. This is very interesting. So when you think about if you're more of a traditional OTR regional dedicated type carrier that does not offer home daily local positions, and what you need to know is, number one, you're competing against them now. And number two, you need to look at how your pay compares. Because if it's just slightly better, what the drivers are telling us is, I'm going to consider it. I'm going to consider the local job, even if I get paid a little less, because I'm home a lot more often, or I'm home, on a more regular basis from a local standpoint. I don't know what you think about that, Scott, but I thought that one was really interesting.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think this just continues to show the shift that we're seeing in driver sentiment as it relates to what is most important to them. Obviously, pay is always going to be there, but we have just seen this over the last 2 or 3 surveys, how important home time is becoming. And I, to some degree, and we don't have to really get into this, but to some degree, I think this is a result of COVID.
Yes.
I think we saw a lot of drivers spend a little more time at home during COVID, during the shutdown and things of that nature. And I think we saw the shift in this. I think we even saw during COVID, a lot of drivers took kind of local delivery type jobs during the COVID shutdown. And I think that this is a result of that. So you absolutely have to pay attention to that. And you absolutely have to pay attention to the fact that it's going back to drivers wanting stability, and stability, particularly in their work-life balance. And I think we would all agree that being a professional driver is not an easy job. It's stressful. I know when I sit in traffic, what it does to my blood pressure. And these guys and gals are doing it every single day, through different cities, through different towns, and I think we just need to take that in consideration when drivers are saying, "Hey, can you get me through the house?" And I think the companies that are able to do that and the companies that are able to plan around that are going to have a leg up, at least from a retention standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, what do you have for the next one we wanted to look at?
So I think, well, the next one here is when looking for a new driving job, what is the most important thing to you? And so, number one, and this does not necessarily surprise me given what's going on right now, but 56.1% of the drivers said company stability. 48.5% said company reputation with drivers, and drivers were able to choose their top two here. So 48.5% company reputation with drivers. And then number three at 38.6% was predictable routes and planning. And then there's a couple of others we can get into if you want. But I want you to speak on the second one in particular, because I know you guys do a lot of reputation management with drivers. But I think the company stability, I think, we've seen several companies have to file bankruptcy recently, unfortunately. So I'd certainly think, given the state of the economy, given the state of the trucking economy and what it's been the last 3 years, that did not necessarily surprise me. But speak to the company reputation with drivers, because I know you usually have a lot of feedback on that.
Yes. So this one is really interesting because one of the things we know from these driver surveys is when we ask, and we didn't ask these types of questions on this one, but we normally do in some way, shape, or form. But like, where's your like go-to spot that you go when you're searching for a job? Almost always they tell us, I want to hear what other drivers are saying. Like I want to, and so I really think that driver reviews fall. And a matter of fact, there is a question in the survey where it does say something about like driver opinions on the actual job are super, super important. But this is critical to your recruiting success. Like when you're thinking about recruiting and retention, what your company reputation is with other drivers, specifically online, is going to be a reflection of how successful you are from a recruiting standpoint. And I will tell you, and we're going to talk about this, I think in our January episode, we're planning on talking about some more AI stuff, but I will tell you one of the things that's creeping in on this, that's really kind of becoming something that carriers are having to look at, is how these GPTs, AI summaries, when drivers are searching, are pulling reviews. Because now when a driver goes and searches online, even if he goes to Google's given them an AI summary. Sometimes it won't even end in a click, right? And it's going to pull reviews from other drivers, whether you love that or not. And I know that kind of freaks out carriers sometimes. Oh my goodness, does that really happen? Yes. So things that you need to be focused on are, how do I improve my online reviews? You can work on your reputation management. Like you can do that. We have a package that does that. Your team could do that for you, however you want to do that. But that is critically important. And then also making sure that you do have a strategy in place for how do I make sure that I'm showing up in the moments that count in all kinds of searches, not just a traditional Google search, but a chat GPT search, all of that whole GPTO strategy. Those are things that's coming up related to this. So it's twofold. The drivers are telling us, I really care about your reputation as a company with other drivers. And the other side of that coin is the strategy you have behind that is critically important. So, I mean, that for me, it kind of stuck out on this one. What I like about this question is we took out the usual suspects, right? Like we said, when you're looking for a new driving job, what's the most important to you? We took out pay and home time and equipment, all the things that we have in here, age of equipment, but we have like the main things that benefit, all that stuff that we know is important. We wanted to know, like, what's that other layer look like? Kind of like the more intangibles, if you will. And they're basically telling us, or they are telling us here, what it is. So it's funny to me that they don't really care about your CSA score.
Yeah, that was actually last. CSA scores
I
15.1%.
know. I was like,
Type,
well,
type of equipment, 21.5%. Ease of applying and hiring process was 26.2%. And then obviously, like Priscilla said, the age of equipment was at 27.8%. So I don't think this one surprised me much at all. I think you're spot on all that. So why don't you? So we've done on our list here that you guys don't see. We've done 1, 2, and 4. Priscilla, why don't you take 3?
yeah. So this one really kind of is up your alley. This is like regarding maintenance issues. And I know you guys talk to a lot of drivers when it comes to this, but the question is when you report maintenance issues, how quickly are they resolved? What did you think about this?
Well, so I really wanted to put this one in there because one of the things we've seen, particularly over this year, is a lot of companies extending their trade-in cycles for obvious reasons. One of the things that we've seen in our data is an uptick in drivers complaining about pay as it relates to their miles, and the root cause of that has been multiple and recurring breakdowns. So these are drivers that are having multiple recurring breakdowns, and obviously they're complaining about the equipment in that sense, but the thing that has bothered them the most is how that's affecting their paycheck. So it was really interesting to me to get some feedback from drivers on when they report a maintenance issue or when they have a maintenance issue, how quickly are they getting that resolved? Because, obviously the longer that is that they're in the shop, that's just less miles that they're running, which means a smaller paycheck. And so 37% of the drivers said same day, which obviously is great. 45.4% say within a few days. 7.6% said more than a week, and then 10% said rarely resolved. So, I mean, I think that the takeaway here is obviously if you're getting them in and out in the same day, and some of that is not, depending on what the issue is, you're not going to be able to do that. One of the things that we promote to the folks that we're working with every week is if you can get them in a loaner truck. Obviously, they're loaner trucks for a reason. They may be older, they may have more miles on it, but getting them in a loaner truck while their truck is in the shop is better than breakdown pay. Breakdown pay is obviously a fraction of what they would make if they were out on the road. Offer them those loaner trucks. And some drivers don't want the loaner truck, and I get and understand that as well. But at least have that offer for them. At least have that available to them if you have loaner trucks available. Because even just a few days is going to be a significant problem from a paycheck standpoint if they're down a few days getting something fixed. And if it's serious, it may take a few days. If you're in the 17, almost 18% that it's more than a week or rarely resolved, I would tell you, I would venture to guess you have a big turnover problem already. Because if those issues are rarely being resolved or it's taking more than a week, I would venture to guess that you have a turnover problem. And that is something you have to control what you can control. And when it comes to equipment, there's certain things you can control, but for the most part, you can to some degree control how long they're in the shop, but you certainly can control if you get them in a loaner. I would tell you if you're falling in the more than a week or rarely resolved, that is something I would start focusing on yesterday, because that is one big thing that we've seen. And I will just say this: I've told all of our customers this over the last couple of months. Anything right now, anything that is preventing a driver from maximizing their miles is going to increase the turnover risk of that driver. So if that's equipment related, if that's maintenance related, anything that's going to keep a driver from getting where you want them and where they want to be from a weekly mileage standpoint is going to increase the probability of that driver turning over. So right now in this economy, maintenance issues are extremely important. We don't want the recurring multiple breakdowns. We want those drivers out logging miles. You want those drivers out logging miles. And so giving them the tools to do that, if they're going to be in the shop for a while, is of utmost importance.
Yeah, agree. I think, before we started working together on this data and all this information, I I knew that maintenance issues were like a big deal, don't get me wrong, but I did not realize how many little nuances to it were that really impacted retention as much as it does. And I've even, even when I was at a carrier, I don't think I was as focused on that as maybe I should have been, but I always think this kind of data is really interesting. So, okay, we're going to look at one more question. And I think this was the very last question in the survey. And we asked drivers, do you feel like your carrier listens to your feedback? Now, here's what I will tell you. 31%, there were 4 options for them to answer. Yes, no, sometimes, or they never ask for my feedback. Okay. So what I can tell you is 31% said yes. So we can collectively, as an industry, know and understand that 69% do not feel fully heard, right? And 25.2 said no, 28.8 said sometimes, 15% said they never asked my feedback. So I know this is kind of your sandbox, Scott, but this to me was like, it almost translates exactly to the number of drivers, the percentage of drivers looking for a job. When you look at that 31%, like, yeah, it's a little bit, that 69%, if you look at it that way, is more than, but it's close. And so I think this is like, one of the universal things about humanity is we want to feel seen and we want to feel heard. Mm-hmm. And if we don't, then we're not comfortable. We don't want to necessarily be in that space. So what did you think about this one?
Very similar to what you did. Here's the thing that really stood out to me is respect. And the reason I think about that is so many times I will have carriers say, we see drivers all the time say that they want respect. What does that mean? And that's a great question. And there's several areas where respect matters. Equipment is one of those. Getting them home on time is one of those as well. But one of the things that I harp on a lot is, what are the things that we ask drivers to do that we wouldn't do ourselves, right? I'll give an equipment example, and I just had this discussion yesterday. If we come into the office and our computer is down, right? So we have IT come and look at it. They're going to try to fix it or whatever. But our bosses don't come to us and say, hey, since your computer is down, we're only going to pay you a fraction of what we would normally pay you. But that's what we do to drivers when their equipment's down. And I understand why we do that to a certain extent, but we do that a lot of times with drivers. Another great example is if there's a paycheck error and something's missing from a driver's paycheck. Most carriers that I talk to, when they do that, they're coming back and they're saying, hey, we'll catch you up on the next paycheck. No, you fix it then. It's your mistake. You fix it right then. Those are the types of things. But one of the biggest things from a respect standpoint is having a continuous feedback loop with your drivers. You have to make those drivers feel just as though they're working within the walls of your office. And if you're not providing a continuous feedback loop for your drivers, they don't feel respected. And so I will take that even a step further. If you do provide a feedback loop in some way to your drivers, whether you're doing surveys or whatever you choose to do, if you're getting feedback and then doing nothing with it, you're going to stop getting feedback, because they're going to say, what's the point? Why am I giving them feedback if they're just going through the motions and they're not doing anything about it? So to me, if you want to know what drivers mean when they say they want to feel respected, one of the very first steps that you can do is have that continuous feedback loop to find out how satisfied your drivers are with what they're doing. And the great thing about that is you're going to know. The bad thing about that is you're going to know, because they're going to be honest. And you want that, because if you're going to fix anything, if you're going to be able to address anything that's going on, you have to know. So the 15% of drivers that say they never ask for my feedback is somewhat astonishing to me. I would really wish that would be even lower than that. But strive to be of the 31% where you're not only asking your drivers for their feedback, but you're taking that feedback and doing something with it. And if you are collecting that feedback data and you don't have a way, or it's not providing you actionable data, then you're getting the wrong kind of feedback. That data that you have to get has to be actionable. Otherwise, it's not worth anything more than the paper that it's on.
Yeah. And I think too, like, having a structured feedback channel. So the driver doesn't even question, how do I give my feedback? Like a very structured feedback channel is definitely the way to go. I know you guys provide that, and some fleets maybe choose to do it on their own, but there's ways that you can do that and then track it, and then, like you said, turn it in to actual actions. So that is just kind of really some highlights from the driver survey, the fall 2025 driver survey. We will, like we said, put a link in the show notes, but there's lots of good data there. I just encourage our listeners and viewers to take this driver survey, sit down with your teams, anybody that touches recruiting and retention, and go through it and say, how do we take this data and improve what we've got going on here at our carrier. So hopefully you guys got a little bit out of that.
Awesome. Well, that's it. So to go and download that report will be in the show notes. We wanted to go over that with you. And so we'll kind of conclude everything up here in a second.
All right. Well, I love that. I always love going over new data that comes out of one of our surveys, our data downloads, or all of that fun stuff. So hopefully you guys will get some good info out of that. If you like this type of data and this type of benchmarking, then I encourage you to register for the Recruitment and Retention Conference. It's going to be here before we know it. It is February 25th through the 27th, always in Nashville, always in February. It is at the Grand Hyatt this year. You can register and find out all the details on all of our workshops and sessions that we have at annualrrconference.com. We'll put that link in the show notes as well. That's annualrrconference.com. So thanks for listening today. If you had fun and got some good information, give us a virtual high five by leaving a rating, a review on your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button so you never miss an episode.
And so our next episode is going to kind of finish up the year, and we will be revealing our 2026 predictions, which, Priscilla's will all be right, I'm sure.
No.
But here's the one thing we've learned over the last 3 years about predictions. No good. Any prediction that has been made the last 3 years has for the most part not come true. But we will be revealing some 2026 predictions. Some of those will be professional. Some of those will maybe not be so professional. They may just be a little more on the fun side. So don't miss that episode. We'll be back again in December. So if you have any questions or predictions of your own, you can reach out to us on social media, or you can drop us an email, and we would love to hear your questions, or more importantly, hear your predictions for 2026. So all of those details will be down in the show notes below. So we will be back next time with more data, insights, and a little bit of fun to help you ace your recruiting and retention game. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving, and we will talk to you next month.